Cosmic Confluence podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and this is the space where timelines collapse, dimensions dance, and deep questions get real. Now, today's episode, it invites us to challenge the illusion of separateness in a hyper individualized world. And listeners, my guest today isn't a spiritual influencer, a guru, or a best selling author. And that's exactly why this episode matters. He is what I would call a wisdom carrier in disguise, a retired oil field builder who once crafted high performance teams by instinct, only to discover, after the structure faded, something deeper was calling. Through meditation, morphic resonance, quantum exploration, and deep dives into consciousness, he has begun unpacking what many of us feel but can't always name: disconnection. Now, in a society that rewards doing over being, his journey reminds us that stillness, curiosity, and even confusion can be doorways to truth. So, if you have ever thought, I have done everything right, so why do I feel off? Then pull up a chair. This conversation is for you. And listeners, please welcome my esteemed guest, Layton Fulton. So, Layton, as always, welcome to the show. And it is such an honor to have you here with us.
Thanks, Anna. That was a great introduction. It made the hair on the back of my neck tingle. But yeah, you definitely nailed it there. And as always, yeah, it's a pleasure to be back speaking with you.
Absolutely. Leighton, you have come from a culture where building teams, it came naturally to you, but only later did you realize it was a kind of gift. And do you think there is a morphic field or a resonance around leadership that certain people can intuitively tap into, without any kind of formal training or experience?
Great question. Yeah, I definitely do. That's a good way to put it. Um, you know, how many times has a person heard, when you have an individual that might be working with you, I don't like to use the term working for you, but if you have a group of individuals that are working together, even your friends or my kids, even, will come up to you and be like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew I should have, or I knew he was going to say that, or I wish I would have put more effort into letting someone know something because you have that again that nudge or that itch at the kind of in the back of your head or wherever you get it that something, and that's that intuition, and people People think intuition is, they talk about mother's intuition and they talk about intuition as being something woo woo, but I think there's so much more to it when it does come to leadership. There's a reason that individuals seem to kind of work their way into a leadership position. And I think a lot of that has to do with them making decisions based on that gut feeling. And, there's a million different terms that you can use for intuition. There's gut feeling and there's having access to your higher self, which I'm not a huge fan of the higher self, terminology because it kind of separates that. You were talking about individuals and separations and being disconnected. And I don't think it's a disconnection, but when people talk about, oh, I'm going to connect to my higher self told me that. Well, that's still part of us. That's just allowing yourself to connect to something and to trust in it and to trust in yourself. And I think that trust is the hard part. Whereas individuals that are leaders, they just go for it. They're just like, there's a reason I'm being called to, say, no, no, I'm making a decision. We're going to do this. And they'll accept the accountability of it. And when that tingle or that feeling comes back, they'll take the time to intelligently listen to it and look around and say, why am I being called to look to the left and look to the right and look at the bigger picture? And that's the way I think that morphic resonance or something bigger, comes to leaders.
Hmm. No, I agree with you. Many people, they have an unspoken energy that draws others in. I'm not sure whether it's something that they learn over the years or that is within them. It has been within them, but I wonder that, if we talk this or take this in a context of leadership, it is less about structure and maybe more about energetic coherence. So that's quite an interesting aspect to think about for all of us. And Leighton, of course, our listeners will have this question in their mind. We are talking about morphic resonance, but how exactly do you define it? And how has this framework helped you reinterpret the concept of connection? Especially in your personal life when you were navigating post divorce life or empty nest rediscovery.
Yeah, morphic resonance is, that's a good way to ask it, there's a lot of buzzwords and terminology people use, and, for people that haven't gone down the morphic resonance, my favorite book on it was by Rupert Sheldrake, and he spoke of it, in terms of scientific type terms, but also in an intuitive side of things that I like to speak of, and it's just this universal knowledge that is accessible, outside of your day-to-day thinking. It's kind of, a way I guess I could explain it is when you're looking for your car keys, you're getting ready to walk out the door, and your car keys, you check your pocket or your purse or wherever you normally would have them, and they're not there. It's very common, or I do anyway, for individuals to look, slow down for a second and look around and think, "Okay, where are those?" Whether you close your eyes or you take a deep breath and you're really trying to think, "Where are those?" And then all of a sudden you get that lightning bolt or that download that hits you. "Oh, I changed my pants before I left. They're in those other," and you can bolt over and find where they are. That, where memories are stored, where you put things, where that universal knowledge, and that's a very simplistic version of, but if you're trying to think about something years ago, whether it was something at work, whether it was an altercation that you had with a family member, and you think like, why did things turn the way they did? Why, it's that memory or that knowledge. Well, I think that in that morphic resonance, Rupert Sheldrake puts it very well. There's more than just your day to day memory stored there. There is universal knowledge. There is knowledge of, of other people's. There's knowledge, there's animal mystic knowledge. He speaks of morphic resonance as the knowledge that migratory birds would use. If birds are going from Alaska to Texas and they get over Idaho and there's a big storm or there's a drought and birds are not able to survive, they don't send a bird back to be like, oh, one of you guys has to go back and tell everybody behind us. They don't send an individual or bird back. The birds behind them, though, by tracking patterns, go around that area and find a different route. So that is, a good way to look at morphic resonance is it is a vast energy field or knowledge field that everyone has access to. But again, if you don't listen to your intuition or you don't take the time to be still and to be quiet and to listen, you aren't going to have the same type of access to it as someone that, is in stillness, or someone that is willing to accept the fact that there is knowledge bigger than ourselves that we can tune into if we take the time to resonate with it, and the time to sit in and think, what am I honestly looking for? What am I thinking? And then it becomes less of a download and more of a capability of streaming that knowledge and having access to it. If you can sit in it and allow in it and not turn away as soon as you get a pang of emotion, I guess you could put it, and you get and that's how I like to utilize it and help people think about it when they're using it for leadership or just daily life, is that when you have access to it, when you get that pang, like when you're looking for your keys and you get a lightning bolt of intuition, don't turn away from it. Really sit in it, even if it's uncomfortable, if it's an uncomfortable emotion or something that you are trying to forget about. Again, going back to if there was an altercation or if there is something that you did that you find embarrassing to yourself that you're remembering from years ago, sit in it and be, why is that embarrassing to me? And when you have access to that knowledge and that awareness of self, you can kind of stream that knowledge that's accessible to us rather than just get a quick download of it and then running away from it. And you can utilize that. And and really listen to yourself. And if you listen to that intuition, you'll find that you're far more intuitive than you thought you were. You know, you think, oh, I made this decision because of A, B, and C. That's your conscious mind thinking. You know, your body wants to stay in flow. You want to stay in resonance with things that vibrate with you, and then that will naturally steer you down a path that's comfortable and will keep your nervous system regulated.
And I wonder, Leighton, uh, you know, something which I've learned through so many conversations on podcasts that we have something called the archetypes. Um, so, do you think that sometimes, people who are naturally intuitive or uh, they they are more aligned towards leadership or maybe caregiving, such kind of traits. Is this somehow related to the archetypes that we are in, or is just through the experiences, through maybe genetics, something like that that has been passed on to them?
Hmm. I was reading some stuff the other day that kind of touched on this. That people do a lot of things based on um, their generational beliefs, or something that is their identity. So they make decisions based on that, which is again in getting back in your conscious mind. And why don't we just follow our intuition? And I think I think everybody has access to it, but I think that well, I know that everyone has access to it, but I think that some people are maybe scared of it, or they have when they're young in life and it comes very easily. A lot of times parents or teachers or whatever, oh, you got to ignore that. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense what you're talking about. We have to follow this structure, this ABC. So I think that some people are, to get back to your question, are very open to it, um, and can explore it much easily and listen to it at a younger age and become more proficient at it. I believe that I guess I don't know how to word that, without getting, if you want to get deep into I believe that as one united soul, I think
Mm.
that we make a lot of laps in the world. I think that our energy, comes back and we get a chance to repeat the lessons, or maybe you learn some more, you remember quicker every time you come back and do a cycle as another piece of consciousness. Does that make sense what I'm saying, or am I getting a little off on
Yes,
on your
yes, yes.
question? I'm trying not to get too deep on that, but I believe that is that when your energy comes back and tries another cycle on on this planet Earth, that maybe you remember quicker
Mm. Yeah,
how to
I,
access that.
yeah, I believe, and I agree. And this is something, it may be like overwhelming for listeners who may not be aware about this, but uh, with uh, talking to people, connecting with them through experiences in my life and others, my friends or family, I have started to be curious to know that. Um, how am I attracted to this, or how am I aligned with this idea? Why am I like this? Because let's say if I have another a family member, we have grown in the same similar circumstances, we have come from the same origin, how we are different? Are those characteristics dictated by only the genes or the environment, or do we have some kind of past connection to that? So that's definitely a separate discussion of its own. But Leighton, after morphic resonance, there's something, because we are talking about energy. Of course, quantum physics has to come into the discussion. So quantum physics tells us that time is an illusion, and that now is all there is. um we have in popular culture, in conversations and discussions, we have talked about the possibility of time being another dimension. So that's hard to actually digest sometimes practically. So how do you anchor yourself in the present, Leighton, especially on days when that deeper sense of connection, it feels out of reach?
Yeah, that it and to go back to when I was just having that discussion, it's sometimes overwhelming and hard not to go down a path that it, you start thinking about things. It can become overwhelming, but it also, like you had spoke in the beginning, when you get curious about things, it's hard not to go down a pathway and it's hard not to explore. But sometimes it can be overwhelming, and you do need to bring yourself back to the present and be like, "Okay, this is all great. This is fine. I want to explore everything." But in the end, in so much of my exploration of human consciousness and my reading, whether you're reading the Tao or Aldous Huxley spoke of it, Alan Watts, everybody, and there's so many of a common theme that just be. And that is
Mhm.
something that everybody brings it back to is like, yes, this is available, that's available, timelines, so on and so on. But what you do is you need to be. And what I remind myself of all the time is that the whole reason we're here is to be human. It's not to escape. It's not escapism. It's not to meditate our entire life. There are people that, expand their mind and do that. But for me as a person, my role here is to be human and to experience everything that is human, whether it's on the light side or the dark side, and to explore what emotions are and explore what you're capable of doing as a human. It's not to become so advanced that I can leave my human body and explore elsewhere. Well, that's great, but you have to remember that the point of us being here is to be human and to be fully human and to experience everything and experience and sit in your emotions and wonder, why does this make me feel this way, and what is it about my individual experience that I'm having here on earth right now that makes this wonderful or makes it dark or makes it whatever. And we are subject matter experts on ourselves. No one else has had my experience, and that's the whole point, is for me to explore it. If there's 10 people sitting at a table, there's 10 different experiences going on. So, everything that's happened up until this point in my life, everything that I could view as negative, everything that I can view as positive, all the experiences, all the people I've interacted with have made me the individual that I am today. And that is where I should be. And that's where I should be centered on, is exploring that and enjoying that, not trying to get out of my body and to be over here and to be over there. Those things are great. And it's good to have that knowledge and to remember what's available to us. But the point is to just be and to enjoy this human life and this one opportunity that I have to go through. And that is how I bring myself back into being grounded and remembering, that I am a subject matter expert on myself and I should be enjoying this as much as I possibly can, this human experience.
Absolutely, that's beautiful. And these moments of deep presence, they can definitely feel cosmic, but also fleeting. Like they come, they kind of uh, create that unsettling but a good feeling of shaking within us, and they kind of go away. So that's beautifully explained, Leighton. Um, and let's also bring in some of the hard and hard facts about the world, that it is glorified, self-made success, individualism, it is glorified. So how can we genuinely feel connected without needing to achieve connection? And it's kind of um, irony that uh, we human beings, as being social beings, we are asked to create connections, earn connections, but the genuinity of that is kind of I don't see it nowadays. So how do you think we can genuinely feel connected?
Yeah. Yeah, individualism is such a strong thing, but we as on the back to the being human part, we as humans are a tribal culture. We thrive on social interaction. There is, it takes a village to raise a child. There's a lot of quotes that could come in here that, it is great to have social interaction. It's good to socialize your children. You want them to be able to feel strong in a group. And it is a group that, makes a great energy. So you want to have that connection, and I've always looked at it, that it's great to be an individual and it is great to be on your own and to hold your own values and have your own ideas. But I think it's more important to be a distinct soul in a group of a big collective group of souls. I think we're all very connected, such as we are connected with nature and connected with animals. And I think it's important to be distinct, but to not separate yourself at the point of individuality, if that makes sense. I think there's a very big line there that, individualism is completely disconnecting yourself and being your own person. I don't need anybody. I can do this. I'm a strong, confident man. That's great. But I think it's more important to look at it as, to reuse this word again, is to be your own distinct person, realize your gifts. Not everybody has the same gifts. I think everybody's capable of, when we talk about connecting to everything, I think everyone's capable of that. But I think some people really do hold some gifts, and whether that's a remembering from something that you've done before, or it's just that you are vibrating at a certain frequency that you really resonate or you really tune into something, and being able to leverage that to help others and to find your way as to kind of where you fit in. And that fitting in might not be the center of attention. That fitting in might not be, being a leader, but that fitting in might be just being part of the group and having that energy in that group. And, I think it's important that people remember, regardless of whether you're being gregarious and being a leader, or whether you're being verbally part of the group, or you're just the person that hangs out in the background. But it is important that you are part of the group and that you should always feel part of the group, even if you're not physically surrounded by people. I think it's, uh, I think it's important that, people can feel, uh, connected and part of everything. You don't necessarily need to be in the mix, but, even, I mean, that feeling can still be there.
Hmm. And I mean, and do you think, like, personally, I've wrestled with this, that uh, sometimes I want to be a part of that group, but I have to kind of change myself or fit in with them, match up to their expectations, and that kind of threw me completely off, because it made me realize that I may not be worthy enough to be uh, part of that group, whether it's an office, like a personal or a professional setting. Uh, is it uh, is it uh, necessary for all of us to have that balance later, or we can be our natural selves? And people have to kind of accept that, yes, everybody is different, and they don't have to necessarily change themselves or do some kind of overhaul to fit in.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a Japanese proverb that says, we wear three masks. There's the mask you have at work, the mask you have in your personal life, and then there's the one that you see in the mirror. And I think that holds true a lot in the world, in that, a lot of people do, hold back their authentic selves when they are in a professional environment, because they would need to be the individual that they think needs to show up and be in that situation. And whether it's the person that is, eh, they think will be the most successful in that environment, and then they take on that persona. Or, a good way to look at it is that they bring their best traits forward that are best utilized in that environment. So I think that there should be a distinction on that. It's terrible to hold back your authentic self, but it's also not necessary to be that, to bring that light forward all the time, especially, like you speak, like in a professional setting, when you feel like, oh, I'm not enough, I shouldn't be here. But you should be able to realize that, there's a reason that you got to that level. There is a reason that people asked you to come forward to that level. So it's easy to hold things back, but you can. I think it's important that you're your authentic self, but to remember that, there are certain gifts that are better utilized and better used, and to bring those ones forward when you are in that environment, not to stifle yourself, to still be yourself and to still laugh at the things that you think are funny and to say the things that you think are important, but to realize that you are capable, and there is a reason that those individuals asked you into that room. And it's not always necessary to bring forward. Again, I even got a little bit off track here before. There's just like how much of this do I let loose during this conversation in this space? Because where are we? And to feel out your surroundings. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you hold back what you really are feeling called to express, even when it is in an uncomfortable environment. And easier said than done. I've been in that situation before, and sometimes when you really express how you feel, especially in a professional environment, there's crickets after you talk, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess there's the threshold of what's capable of being expressed here.
Yeah. Oh, wow, I agree. I think this conversation could go on and on, but in the interest of time, Leighton, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and share their set of thoughts uh, on self awareness, identity, morphic resonance, connection with people, what would be the best way?
I have, you can reach us through our website at the clinic, which is lifecraft.me, and then has all our links on there. You can scroll down, and there's a link on there to connect with me, and all my social medias and everything are on there. So that's the best way to find me is at lifecraft.me and our link tree.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes. And Leighton, this was such an electrifying conversation, personally for me, because it reminded me, and I hope for the listeners as well, that we don't need to be, don't need a title to be a teacher or maybe a microphone to hold medicine. Sometimes the most profound, deep insights they can come from people who have lived fully, failed honestly, yet they have stayed curious when life got quiet. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, I hope this conversation spurs one person, even to get curious as to what's available to and to explore, what it is that they're looking for. So thank you for the time to talk.
So there's later. So listeners, what if you are not lost? You're just shifting frequencies. What if connection isn't something to chase, but it's something to remember? If this episode starts something within you, share it with someone walking their own quiet path. And don't forget to connect with Layton. Just refer to the show notes and also subscribe to Cosmic Confluence for more such soul stretching conversations where your curiosity is always welcome. Until next time, stay grounded and keep looking up. Thank you.